Admiral Korthak stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, his 6 eyes fixed on the tactical display that showed the complete subjugation of the Terran system. The Vorthan Empire's invasion fleet stretched across the void like a metallic constellation, 12,000 warships of various classes, all bearing the crimson sigil of imperial conquest. "The human homeworld's defenses have fallen, Admiral," reported his tactical officer, her scaled hands dancing across holographic controls. "Their primitive fleet has been scattered. Only civilian evacuation ships remain." Korthak's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Earth hung before them like a blue-green jewel, defenseless and ripe for harvest. The humans had proven surprisingly resourceful for such a young species, but their technology was centuries behind the Empire's finest. Their resistance had been admirable, but ultimately futile. "Begin orbital bombardment of military installations," Korthak commanded. "Leave the population centers intact. We'll need workers for the mining operations." The order rippled through the fleet as massive battlecruisers aligned their weapons arrays. Plasma cannons capable of glassing continents began their charging sequences, their energy signatures painting the darkness in ominous crimson light. Then the sensors screamed. "Admiral!" The communications officer's voice cracked with confusion. "We're detecting an unknown vessel on the outer perimeter. Massive energy signature, but, sir, it's not showing up on visual scanners." Korthak's primary eyes narrowed, while his auxiliary eyes focused on the incoming data. "Elaborate." "The gravitational sensors detect something enormous, roughly the size of a Titan-class dreadnought, but all other sensors show empty space. It's as if something visible is displacing gravity itself." A chill ran through the bridge crew as the temperature inexplicably dropped several degrees. The normally steady hum of the ship's systems developed an unsettling harmonic that seemed to resonate in their bones. "Put it on the main display," Korthak ordered. The view screen shifted to show the coordinates where their sensors detected the anomaly. For a moment, there was nothing but stars and darkness. Then, like a photograph developing in reverse, something began to materialize. It started as a shimmer, a distortion in space that hurt to look at directly. Gradually, the outline of a massive vessel began to take shape, but this was no ship like any in the Empire's databases. Its hull appeared to be constructed from materials that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, giving it the appearance of a hole carved out of reality itself. Strange geometries twisted along its length, architectural impossibilities that made seasoned spacers feel nauseated just looking at them. But most disturbing of all were the lights. Along the vessel's hull, countless windows glowed with a cold, pale radiance that pulsed in rhythm like a massive heartbeat. And in those windows, silhouettes moved the suggestion of figures going about unknown tasks aboard a ship that shouldn't exist. "Admiral," whispered the sensor operator, her voice barely audible above the growing harmonic resonance. "I'm detecting life signs aboard that vessel. Thousands of them. But they're wrong somehow. The readings keep fluctuating between present and absent, as if they're not entirely there." Korthak felt his combat implants flood his system with adrenaline as his warrior instincts screamed danger. "Hail them." Standard Imperial protocols. The communications array sent out the traditional challenge, demanding identification and surrender. The response came not through their receivers, but as a whisper that seemed to emanate from the bridge walls themselves. "We are the crew of the starship Nemesis," the voice said, carrying the flat tones of someone speaking across an impossible distance. "We died defending this world 300 years ago. But death, we have learned, is not the end of duty." The tactical display exploded with impossible readings as the ghost ship began to move. It accelerated without visible propulsion, its trajectory taking it directly toward the heart of the Imperial fleet. But more terrifying than its movement was what happened to the space around it. Reality seemed to fray at the edges of the vessel's path. Stars flickered and dimmed as it passed, and the cosmic background radiation itself appeared to recoil from its presence. The ship left a wake of absolute darkness behind it, not the absence of light, but the absence of everything. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Korthak barked. Battle stations. Target that vessel and fire everything we have. The Imperial fleet responded with devastating efficiency. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and particle beams lanced out from thousands of weapons emplacements, enough firepower to crack a moon. The energy barrage struck the ghost ship dead on, illuminating it in a corona of destructive force. The weapons passed through it completely. The munitions continued on their trajectories, striking nothing but empty space where the ship should have been destroyed. Yet there it was, unchanged and undamaged, continuing its inexorable advance toward the fleet's center. "You cannot destroy what is already dead," came that terrible whisper again. "But the dead can destroy the living." The ghost ship's weapons ports began to open, if they could be called weapons. Instead of traditional gun batteries, tendrils of pure darkness extended from the hull like reaching fingers. Where they touched the vacuum of space, reality itself seemed to unravel. The first contact came with the heavy cruiser Iron Will. One of the darkness tendrils brushed against its shields, and the barrier collapsed instantly. The tendril penetrated the hull without leaving a breach, passing through solid matter as if it were mist. The ship's lights flickered and died. Its engines went silent. On Korthak's display, the Iron Will's life sign indicators went dark. All 3,000 crew members showed as deceased, but their bodies remained at their stations, hands still on controls, faces frozen in expressions of absolute terror. "Join us," whispered the voices of the dead crew, their transmissions somehow reaching every ship in the fleet simultaneously. Death is peaceful. Death is eternal. Death is duty. Panic spread through the Imperial fleet like wildfire. Ships began breaking formation, their captains' discipline crumbling as they watched the ghost ship move through their ranks like a predator among prey. Every vessel it touched joined its phantom crew, adding their voices to the growing chorus of the damned. "Admiral!" His first officer shouted over the cacophony of terrified reports flooding the communication channels. "We're losing entire battle groups. Recommend immediate retreat." Korthak's pride warred with his survival instincts as he watched centuries of Imperial military doctrine prove useless against an enemy that existed beyond the laws of physics. The ghost ship had reached the fleet's core formations and was systematically converting dreadnoughts into floating mausoleums. "All ships," he commanded, his voice heavy with defeat, "execute emergency hyperspace jump. Retreat to the outer system immediately." The surviving vessels of the mighty Imperial fleet activated their faster-than-light drives in a desperate scramble to escape. Ships disappeared in flashes of bent space-time, leaving behind their dead companions, who now drifted silently alongside the ghost ship. As the Eternal Dominion prepared for its own jump, Korthak took one last look at the impossible vessel. It had stopped its advance and now hung motionless above Earth, a guardian that transcended death itself. "Tell your empire," came the final transmission, "that Earth is under the protection of those who loved it enough to die for it. And that love, Admiral, is stronger than death." The hyperspace jump engaged, tearing the flagship away from the battle zone. But even as the Terran system vanished behind them, Korthak knew they would never escape the memory of what they had witnessed. In the depths of space above Earth, the ghost ship Nemesis and its fleet of converted Imperial vessels stood vigil. And in their cold, pale windows, the silhouettes of the dead continued their eternal watch, waiting for the next threat to their beloved world. The Empire's invasion had ended before it truly began, stopped not by superior technology or military strategy, but by something far more powerful: the unwavering loyalty of those who had promised to defend their home, even beyond the grave.